Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today, our info session on the Facade Improvement Grant Program. If you haven't already, we'd love to just see who's all joining us today. So if you can put in the chat your name and organization or business, we'd love to just see who's here today with us. And we're going to go ahead and get started. All right. And we'll have a time at the end for any questions. We will also cover some frequently asked questions as well, which may cover kind of what you wanted to ask today. But if not, there'll be a time also for you to pop in the chat any questions you have. So my name is Natalia Rodriguez-Hilt, and I lead our economic development work here at LISC Indianapolis. I have with me today my colleague Alex Olson, and he leads our Façade program, and he's also on the economic development team. And then we also have Lieutenant Alan Tuttle joining us today, and he's going to be talking a little bit more about the CPTED design elements that can prevent or reduce crime, and just give some tips for you all if you're considering that for your business, for your improvements. He's also on our grant committee and has been a huge partner for us, so we're really grateful for that. All right, just a little bit about LISC for those who maybe aren't aware of the organization, but we're a national nonprofit and we're really focused on forging resilient and inclusive communities. We do that in this framework, really focused on empowering people, transforming places, supporting small businesses, and driving systems change. And so that's our approach to the work. We are based here in the Indianapolis office and focused exclusively within the city of Indianapolis, Marion County. So within our work, as I mentioned earlier, we're really focused on communities within Indianapolis. And so this is a map that shows some of the areas where we've been heavily invested, working with residents, businesses, and local community organizations to really drive change and bring investment that will ultimately benefit the residents and the businesses within that community. So our Façade program we've actually had since 2004, so we've had it a really long time, and it's really evolved over that time. Since 2004, we have invested in over 550 projects, providing grants from $2,000 up to $20,000, and every year we've tried to make the program be more adaptable and really serve the community needs. And so that's why you see it's evolved over time. In 2004, a lot of that investment was downtown because there was a need for that type of investment. There was a lot of vacant buildings. And since then, we've continued to spread kind of around that urban core where you saw the neighborhoods that we really focus on. That's been kind of a priority area for us and for this program as well. So just to cover at a high level, just some of the program priorities, these haven't changed. They're the same as last year, but we really prioritize minority-owned businesses, minority-owned buildings and projects. The Great Place, Quality of Life, Inclusive Economic Opportunity District are those neighborhoods that I showed in the map earlier. We really prioritize projects that are in those areas or low to moderate income census tracts as well. We'll learn a little more about the CPTED design elements, but we prioritize projects that have design elements for the exterior that will help really reduce or prevent crime. So you'll hear a little bit more about that, but if you have some of that, that's something that we really like to see in projects. And then, this program is really designed to support small businesses, local community-based groups, not large-scale development. That's so small businesses, smaller projects are really the priority of this particular program. Awards can go up to $20,000 per project. As I mentioned earlier, this program is just for projects and businesses within the Marion County area. And you may request a certain amount of grant funds, but the committee will award between 50 to 90% of total eligible exterior improvements. And we'll talk a little bit more about what are some eligible exterior improvement costs that can be covered by the grant. And with that, I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Alex, who's going to talk a little more about the application and some of the details of the program.
Thanks, Natalia. All right, guys, time for the nitty gritty. I'm just going to start off with sharing a little bit about the program details for this year. As many of you that are probably on this call know, the application is live. So even after this call, if you can take this information and begin filling out your applications. That application window is going to be open from January 30th to March 17th of this year. After that period, there's going to be a review period. Natalia, briefly mentioned a little bit of that we do have a committee that reviews the applications. And then you guys, if you're, filling out a award or a CDC, you should expect to begin hearing whether applicants were accepted or rejected starting the week of April 3rd. After the award, and I'll get a little more into this on the next slide, but after the award is given, grant recipients will sign an award letter that states the grantee will only use the grants for eligible expenses. They understand that the timeline for completing the project, and they understand that the money will be taken away if one does not adhere to those guidelines. At that point, the CDC will sign the document along with the grantee, and then LISC will also sign and disperse the money to the CDC. So a little more into the timeline. As I just said, the application this year is going to be open for 6 weeks, so giving people plenty of time. At that point, after the application closes, a review committee will review those applications and help LISC in making those award decisions. After that, applicants will be notified whether they were awarded or declined, and also what the grant deadline is to use those grant funds. The LISC will then set up a meeting with the CDC and the grantees. So that'll be a meeting with me where we will just really discuss with the CDC just how the process is working, make sure that introductions are made if they weren't made before, make sure that you guys just get a little more visibility with each other. At that point, the award letter will also be going out. You all will be signing it, CDC will sign it, and LISC will also sign and then disperse those funds. And I think something that's really important about this step is as the sooner, if you are awarded a grant, the sooner that you sign it, the sooner the CDC signs it, the sooner you can get your grant funds. And that's why this is so important. The way the program works is it relies on grant dollars. And so LISC as an organization has to go through a system of processes to make sure that money can be dispersed. So there is a timetable to doing that at the national level, just so everybody understands that process a little bit more. The way that our disbursement is currently working is that 50% of the grant funds, so the first half of your award amount, whatever that amount is, will be dispersed at the beginning of the project, just to help in case you don't have the liquidity in your bank account. Everybody, if you're a business owner, you have other dues, you have other responsibilities, you have other things you're dealing with. So we wanted to make this process hopefully as harmless as possible for you. So we will disperse the first half of funds at the beginning of the project. When you're halfway through, you'll submit invoices and progress photos of the Façade project. And at that point, we'll disperse the other 50% of the funds to you. At that point, after those funds are being used, you'll keep taking progress photos. And then you will also have you'll have a final impact survey that we'll have you fill out. So the reason we ask for all these photos and receipts is because we want to make sure that that things are being used for eligible expenses. We will only reimburse for eligible expenses. And also, secondly, we want to be able to share that story of the project as it's coming along. We want to see it go from how it currently is to what the improvements are and really show the impact of the Façade grant program. So it's great to just we encourage business owners, and it's also something you can post on social media. It's something you can be proud of, and you can look back and see that progress. After that, as I said, or through that process, the grant recipient is required to just communicate with the CDC that's dispersing those funds bi-monthly, because you're not going to be able to get funds unless you're talking to the CDC. You have to use the funds by the deadline, and so it's just important to have constant communication with the CDC. You can include me on any of those emails, but the CDC will also be communicating with me. And as I said, final photos and completed survey at the end. So some information that's required for the application is just going to be contractor estimates. You should have those done for the application, a project budget, and there's actually a template on our LISC website, business financial statements, photos of the current building and what the parts of the building that you're applying for the facade project. A CDC support letter is also highly recommended. So there's as well as that project budget, there's also a support letter and CDC map on our website, so you can actually see what area your business would be in. Other information is just business and property information, your address, square footage, number of businesses in the building if it's a strip, number of project descriptions. So what is actually being done to the project, the timeline of how long you think it's going to take to be completed, permitting requirements. Have you already seeked out those permitting requests? Is that something you still need to do? Is that even something you need for your project? Business financial information, and then also just if you're a tenant, how long your lease term is. Just some extra tips. Commercial properties that are vacant but do not have an identified use or tenants are not going to be as competitive. And we'll get to this later, but applicants that would like to cover exterior lighting are encouraged to read those CPTED section on our website. So there is a section on our website. We're going to have Lieutenant Tuttle speak pretty soon, and he'll explain a little bit more of what that means. Murals for the outside of your business are eligible for facade grants. But we do prefer those are completed by local artists, minority, immigrant, women artists. Next, right here on this page is the link to the CDCs around the city. I would encourage you to check out our website, and I believe in the application there is a link to viewing what local CDC is in your jurisdiction. But if you also have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. And then just finally, we do, really, as far as eligibility, we look at attached signage, building entrances, lighting, doors, windows, awnings, brick and tuck pointing, art murals, any stone things that need to be done, and then other building surface materials. So those are some of the eligible expenses, and there's more information on our website as well. So as far as program implementations, we will require that all projects are completed by the end of the year. So anything that is started in this year will need to be finished, all expenses reported by the end of 2023. Another note is that if permitting is required for your project, that permitting needs to be requested within the first 2 weeks of you being notified. So basically 2 weeks from being notified, I'll be, checking in with the CDC and the awardees, making sure those permittings have been requested, because that can be just a large bottleneck to making sure the project's getting done and dispersing those grant funds. And the CDC in your neighborhood will actually be providing that grant award. So it's LISC providing it to the CDC. Business owners will be receiving it from the CDC. So the CDC is your best friend in this, right? So making sure that you're having constant communication with the CDC if there's any issues, if you have any questions, if anything needs to happen, your CDC is your first point of contact. So making sure that you're talking to them about that first installment, and we already went over that process a little bit. So when the project is completed, just making sure those final photos and invoices go to the CDC. The CDC will share those with the LISC. So again, just reemphasizing that constant communication with the CDC is so important. And they can message us every day if you guys message them, and that's great, because we just, everybody's aware of what stage the project is in, and that's really what we want to make sure is that everybody feels supported and that the projects move along. So I just wanted to touch on that role of a grantee. some of those roles are just to meet with the CDC and LISC at the beginning of the project, to share your project details, review the details, reviewing grant award letter carefully, making sure you understand what are eligible expenses. Of course, some projects are going to involve things that are non-eligible expenses. So some of the work you do, if it's not if it is an ineligible expense, then you will have to find other financing for that portion. And so that's important. When we receive invoices, we'll be checking to make sure that, okay, this part is for roof, we don't cover roof. Oh, this part was for cement for a walkway, we don't cover that, but we'll cover the rest of it. As far as requesting permitting, as I said before, make sure you're requesting that within 2 weeks of receiving your award letter. If you've already requested that before, then that's great. We'll make sure you're moving forward with your project. And just, that constant communication with the CDC and complying with that eligibility. So just a few frequently asked questions. If there is a permitting issue, make sure you communicate with your CDC and LISC. We have, different resources. I believe Drew's actually on the call. So hey, Drew. But he's a great resource we have as an ombudsman for the city, and he can, really speak on behalf of citizens for permitting issues. If there's any delays, like I said, just make sure to reach out to us. One of the reasons we really wanted to make sure that there was a good window to use to complete your projects, but we want to make sure that they keep moving along and everybody does their due diligence on the front end to make sure that they can actually, get to the parts of the project and the grant that are really going to benefit their business. And if a business wants to just pay for all of it up front and then being reimbursed in one lump sum, that's completely fine. That works for the CDC, that works for LISC. So don't feel like you have to request one disbursement and then another, so that is an option. And then if you need any additional financing, LISC is a member of the CDFI collaborative, and they have different loan options, and really work with businesses at that 80% LMI or minority certified businesses. Like Natalia was saying earlier, they provide a lot of business supports and things like that. So feel free to speak with Natalia or myself, or check out our website about the CDFI collaborative. Now I'm going to hand it over to Lieutenant Aaron Tuttle to talk a little bit about CPTED.
Thanks, Alex. It's a pleasure to be here. I recognize a lot of people on the call. It's good to see everybody. I kind of wanted to get on here and talk about CPTED and what CPTED is and how it can help you, and how it will set you apart from other nominations or nominees for this grant. And the biggest thing is, what is CPTED? And it's the definition is crime prevention through environmental design. But what it really is we're making your businesses harder for thieves and criminals to target for theft, robbery, burglary, things like that. And we want people to go past your business and go someplace else, because of designs and things you have thought of in your lighting, from your lighting to your entry points. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about. This won't be long. Alex has already threatened me, said I can't be on here for 20 minutes. So talking about the 3 ways to prevent crime, you have your organized, which is basically people. Those are, neighborhood watches, security guards, police. And then mechanical, your locks, your lights, your cameras, your gates, your fences, all those things. And then there's the natural, and that's what we're talking about here, that's where CPTED is. These are overlapping strategies. So what you don't want to do one thing and forget about it. If you can, we're going to try to do multiple layers of this idea of making your business less attractive to criminals. So here's a few. We go ahead and go to the next slide. We'll talk about natural surveillance. This is a good example of natural surveillance. Is clear, open ways of looking out, looking into your business. Why would we want to look into your business? Well, when the police drive by, it is nice for us to be able to see what's going on. In some businesses, I know that's not possible, but giving you this example, if you go to the next slide, you'll see a not so good example of making it, yes, we have advertisements up here, but we can't see in, and more importantly, you can't see out. So you can't see who's coming into your business to either do you harm or take advantage of you. Signs should not cover more than 15% of the window, and I would say it should be even less than that. Next slide. Now we're going to talk about territorial reinforcement, and this is a way of using fencing or landscaping or rock or some sort of a barrier that tells people where your business is, where your property is. It funnels them to a specific entrance. It's not necessary for everybody, but yes, this is a good way of funneling people to where you want them to be and preventing them to go to places you don't want people. Next slide. And then we have natural access control. So, you want to position checkout counters and pay points near the main entrance if possible. One, so employees can see who's coming in and out of your business. And two, it's just a known, studies have shown that people are less likely to shoplift if there is somebody near the entrance or exit. Next slide. Maintenance. This is really one of the best examples that is not going to cost you a lot of money, but keeping your visibility where it needs to be. In other words, trees should be trimmed to 6 foot or higher, and bushes, growth from the ground should be trimmed to 3 foot or lower. So that window between 3 foot and 6 foot should be clear for people to see. In other words, we don't want bushes for people to hide behind. You don't want trees covering up windows. We want to be able to see and have a good viewpoint from in and outside. Let's go to the next one. This is probably the biggest focal point for this grant. And in years past, I've done this for 2 years now. I've helped out with sitting on the board that decides who gets these grants. And a lot of people put in for lighting. And I can tell you that a lot of people don't know much about lighting, and they think more is better. And that's not the case. A lot of lighting is good, but it depends on what kind of lighting and where it's situated. And we have light pollution, light trespassing. We have glare. There's a lot of different things. Go to the next slide. And lighting is used for the illumination of human activity. And that's the best definition of what lighting's purpose is. Do you see the man in the gateway? You probably do because I told you there's one there. But if you go to the next slide, see, just covering up that light a little bit really gives good illumination. So we have to be cognizant of what kind of lights we select, from LED to incandescent and other types of lights. And then you also what kind of fixtures you have, whether they're cut off, full or half cut off. Are they shining straight up? Are they bouncing off of other surfaces? Or are they creating a glare like this one was? So those are things that we can help with. I did put my email in the chat, and anybody, I offer these services to everybody. Anybody looking to apply for the grant, if you want, and you're thinking about lighting specifically, please shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to meet with you or have somebody else. I work on the Southwest District, but I have counterparts all over the city. We'd be more than happy to come out and give you some ideas on ways to better illuminate your business. I think that's all I got.
Thank you, Lieutenant Tuttle. We have a couple minutes left. If we have any other questions, I know Natalia's been answering some in the chat. Is there any you wanted to amplify maybe, Natalia, for people that are already asking them?
Yeah, I tried to answer as many as I could. Thank you for putting your questions in there. If my answer wasn't clear or maybe more confusing, feel free to unmute and ask your question. Or if you do have additional questions just from what you've heard, we have time now to answer those. And if you want to meet with us and kind of describe more in depth your project, to talk a little bit more, we're also happy to do that if that would be better.
Hi, my name is Tara. I apologize if this question has already been asked in the chat because I missed it if it was. But does this only cover exterior? Doesn't cover any interior?
Correct.
That's
Yes.
correct.
Only exterior and front facing, street facing improvements. So if you're on a corner, until you have two street facing sides, you could get eligible, grant to cover eligible expenses on both of those sides. If it is just one side that's street facing, then that's only the side that would be eligible for the grant funds. However, your kind of match or the part that you cover could be, other exterior improvements like on the back or the sides, or in some cases, we've counted interior renovations towards that match. That's something that's really left up to the committee, but the actual grant funds that you would be requesting from us, they have to be only for eligible improvements, and it would be only on street facing sides of the building.
Could that include like decks or patios that are exposed?
If they are permanent and like attached to the building, yes, it could be eligible. And that's something that that's kind of the parameter we always say is like make sure it's attached and permanent to the building. So it would truly be like a permanent exterior improvement.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And then
I can answer that next one, Aaliyah. So essentially it's just we can fund up to 90% of a proposed project up to $20,000. So somebody earlier asked if their project that was going to be $40,000 could be funded at 50% and they could receive a full $20,000. That's correct. So essentially it's just if the entire cost of it was $20,000, we could only fund up to $18,000. So we do have business owners pay some of the expense for the facade program, just because that's a pretty standard facade program, and some are only do 50%, but we try and do up to 90%. So it's just really a scale of how much we will fund of a project. It's not really something as much that you would want to be worried about, but when you submit how the project is, we do a calculation of, okay, how much money would this be funded if it was at 50%, how much at 75%, and then how much at 90%. And we share that with the committee so that they can say, this could still have impact at this cost and after and such and such.
Thanks, Alex. That's really helpful. And just to emphasize, when you're putting information about your project in the application, please provide as much description and detail as possible, because a grant committee, they may not know, they may not know your business. So all that they have is what you put in that application. So if there's one sentence, that's all that they know about your project. So I just encourage you, the more information and description, specifically how it would serve the greater community, how your business serves a greater community, how it would beautify the area, all of those details are really, really helpful for the grant committee to really make a decision on whether to award the project or not. And if awarding it, if we're able to award it with our limited funds at the full amount requested, or if it would be a partial grant award. And this is only for commercial properties, specifically, think of properties where businesses are operating out of. We have allowed mixed use projects where the first floor is retail, but the improvements would have to be focused on that retail first floor, not on the residential portion of the building. I'd say, we've done mixed use before. The committee has definitely awarded funding there, but the priority really is for commercial business oriented buildings.
Excuse me, I do
And-
have a question.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Enrique Martinez, and I operate a tax preparation office and insurance. And I have a building. I believe it's still zoned as a residential, but the prior owner was running the business here for like 25 years. And I have not changed the zoning to it. And I do need I guess my project would be like parking lot. I don't have any parking lot. I have like a gravel driveway, which is not practical. And there is no like handicap access to it. So I guess my question is, since it's still considered residential, but honestly, it's 100% used for business. Would this be something you guys consider, or should I rezone it first? What do you think about that?
I think if you can send us the address, we can just double check a few things, but yeah, generally it would have to be zoned, not residential. But if you can send us the address, let us double check on a few of those things. And if you can put maybe your email in the chat as well, we can follow up with you and kind of consider your project specifically so we give you the right response.
And I think I'm sorry, Enrique. The other thing I was going to say, we do not at this time. In the past, we've done concrete and pavement, but at the current moment, we don't do patios. Or I know I saw Danita. Hey, Danita. She asked if parking lots were done, and we don't do parking lots at this time. So it's more just think elements of the business that are connected to the brick storefront.
So will your sign be considered? Because at the same time, I don't really have a budget yet for the sign.
What I would recommend is, depending on what you're trying to get done, and I would get an estimate. Some of those parts may be eligible expenses that you could definitely submit. Other parts might not be. So at this current time, unfortunately, just because of the guidelines that everybody has to follow, we don't have concrete or cement as an eligible expense. But other parts of your facade grant, definitely we do things with entrances and things like that.
And signs, yeah, definitely. Emily,
So sorry. I was just gonna say, if you're on here, don't think we're telling you not to apply. It's just these are what are the eligible expenses. So if there's something you can think of that you could use it for, please just keep that mindset.
absolutely, yeah. And I put the link to the grant guidelines in the chat, so I would recommend looking at that. It's also linked on our website, so you can really read kind of what exactly are eligible improvements. And then if you do have any questions, you can always reach out. I know Alex put his email in the chat, so you can always reach out and kind of double check on things as you prepare your application. And Emily, I see your question, does all the work have to start after the award date? Can permits be obtained before? Permits can be obtained before, and I think especially with the kind of delays that we've experienced, especially since the pandemic on permits, I would say definitely you're welcome to request permits beforehand. In terms of the work starting, we ask that you hold off on any exterior eligible grant expenses, any of those renovations until you've heard back on the grant, because we can't reimburse work that was done before we even decided whether to award it or not, if that makes sense. Elia, I see you have your hand raised. Did you want to ask a couple questions?
Hey, yes, sorry about that. I was trying to put it in the chat.
Oh, no worries.
I just wanted to ask, so I have a forward-facing business with lots of windows. My space is an event center. It's called Far East Side City Works. And I like to create like somewhat of some privacy there. Not trying to cover everything up like the officer said, but would those I have an artist who does papel picado. I don't know if I how to translate that. But would something like that be okay to cover some of the windows?
So an awning would be an example of something that would be eligible because an awning is something that's installed and it's permanent. So if it's in that type of format, like if a papel picado is the awning and there's special material that's permanent, yes. My understanding of papel picado is that it's actually a very fragile kind of material that could be easily destroyed and is more used for decorations for like temporary events. So I guess it would just depend on like the format. If it's an awning and the decoration is, part of that material that is permanent, it could work as a window covering on the exterior. But if you have other questions on that, we can talk more through that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions?
I have a question. After I fill up the application and something is not right, you guys let me know right away. This way I can give you some response right away.
Definitely.
And then the other question I got, I'm gonna do this. The building I'm trying to get the grant. It's 1880 building, and I need to restore the old. It's office building with the parking lot, and I need to restore all the mortar. I got some mortar removal from the bricks, and then I'm gonna do some tuck point on the bricks. And then we're gonna do some trim all the way on top. Needed to be redone. So my question is it 20,000 is the top you guys match, or it can be some more?
So 20,000 is the max amount that could be awarded. And yes, the tuck pointing and the brickwork, those are eligible exterior improvements.
And how do I get the application and fill it up? What I have to do for that?
Yes. So the application is linked on the website and we can add that. Alex, I don't know if you can add that in there. But it's at the top of the website. There's a little box that you click for the application. And if you want, you can just look through it all just to see the type of information that you need to have available to fill out the application. It will be open for 6 weeks. So you can always look at it, go get estimates or whatever you need, and then come back and fill it out. But yeah, you would just fill that out and then that review committee will meet, will make kind of the decisions, and then we will be in contact with you after that.
Probably the only thing I need to right now make it more photo from the building.
Okay.
I think I got everything else ready to go.
Perfect. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, Alex just put that in there. So feel free to check it out. But yeah, that's the only thing that you would have to do to request that funding would be to fill out the application, and then the review committee will make the decisions.
Okay. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And just to also emphasize, everything's available in English and Spanish. All the marketing materials, the applications, the website, there should be a button at the top that says Español. And so you can click that for everything to be in Spanish. And if you do need any assistance in any other language, just send us an email and we'll figure that out.
Great. That's wonderful.
Awesome. All right.
Thank you very much.
No other questions.
I actually do have one more. I'm sorry. I apologize. What if I'm in the process of taking over a building? So what if it's currently has someone else? I guess I just don't really know how to move with that.
I think I can answer that.
Okay.
So essentially you will just need to if you talk to the building owner, you will need to have the building owner, basically their approval on it, but also you will need to put, if you're, depending on what the building is and how long you've been in it, or if you have a lease, there are those questions in the application. So it's going to ask, it's going to ask for how long your lease is. It's going to ask if you're leasing, it's going to ask for the permission of the business owner. So if this is something you're looking at applying to, just, I would get with the owner of the building first.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, one more thing. Steve is on the send the bill for the.
If there are no other questions, Natalia, you were going to say something.
Oh, no, I was going to say that, but you can close it out, Alex. You got it.
Well, I just want to, on behalf of all of us at LISC, Natalia, myself, and Lieutenant Tuttle, we just thank you all for joining us today. Hopefully, we just hope that this webinar was short but full of information, and you guys are all excited to fill out your applications. Please feel free, if you're a CDC on here, to continue sharing with businesses that you interact with on the corridors and in the neighborhoods you work with. So thank you all for joining us. And if you have any questions, you have our contact information. Drew, he put his information. He's a great resource. Lieutenant Tuttle, please use your resources, and just good luck filling out your application. Everybody have a good rest of your afternoon.